Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Well, I got lucky at the thrift store once again. I found a round bonsai stand. Here's a look at the stand. It's a wooden stand. I wouldn't say it's the highest quality of stands, but it's okay. Could use a bit of touch up on some of the varnish, but I mean, it's a stand, and it was originally $3.49, and I had used my Super Saver points, and I got it for $2.49. So that was a good deal, I thought. I've been doing a lot of repotting videos, and that's because some of the trees in the greenhouse here and the basement downstairs, the buds were swelling and it was about to leaf out, so it's a good time to repot the trees. I had a look around the greenhouse here and the basement today, and I'm all caught up on my repotting for now anyway. So I'll keep my eyes on all the rest of the trees, and when they show signs of breaking dormancy, I'll get those repotted also. One of my big repots this spring will be my Austrian pine here. It's growing in a mica pot, and my objective this year is to grow this sacrifice leader with a lot of vigor to try and even out all the bulges on the trunk of this tree. I think this pot is also getting too small for the tree. Visually it looks fine, but I've got a clay pot down below here. It's slightly larger and slightly deeper, and I think that'll help accelerate the growth of this tree. I don't mind this tree growing into a larger tree. I have no problems with that. So that'll be one of the big repots coming, putting the Austrian pine into this clay pot. I also have a lot of trees that are fairly new, like this yew here. I've never repotted that yet. I've got some apple seedlings that I'll repot. I've got some London plane tree seedlings here that need to be repotted. So there's a lot of trees that I got last year. Most of them fairly small. There's a Rose of Sharon here that will need repotting, but they're not breaking dormancy yet, so it's still too early to repot them. Actually, I just noticed the Rose of Sharon, the buds are starting to turn green. So that, I'll pull that out because that will need repotting. I've never potted this up yet. I think I got this from Jason, maybe? I'm not sure. Someone gave it to me. My 60th birthday pine down here, the goal of this is to repot it from this giant tub into a smaller bonsai-sized pot. So I have to wait until it grows more roots. It's too dangerous to repot it yet. So it's kind of frustrating because I have this tree and I want to work on it, but I don't want to reduce the foliage on it because that's what generates energy to grow the roots. So I just have to be patient with it. Maybe next spring it'll be ready for repotting, but it hasn't grown the roots yet. I also have my largest tree in my elephant penjing, and the tree is matured and it looks really nice by itself. I think it's becoming a really beautiful tree. So I'm going to take it out of the elephant penjing and put it in its own pot. So all the focus is on the tree because I think it's looking really good. My rosemary tree back here is not looking good. I noticed all the needles are drying up, and if you rub them they all fall off. So I think that tree's a goner. It was looking pretty weak. It didn't grow very well last summer, and I think the winter has just finished it off. So I think I'll almost be glad to get rid of that. It's in a big pot and takes up a lot of room, and I've had very little success with the rosemaries overwintering them. So yeah, I could try again on a younger rosemary and try and train it, but I don't know. I have a tough time overwintering them. Down below the bench here, I have 2 pots of young field maple seedlings from our KW Bonsai Society workshop, and my intent was to plant these in a forest. There is one of them that is leafing out. There's a few others with the buds swelling, but not much activity on them yet. The larger of the trees down here, That's my largest field maple. It doesn't show any signs of activity yet either, so it's too early to repot those into a forest. Many of my cedars are starting to green up now, the ones in the greenhouse here. They went from quite a kind of a rust color, and they're starting to turn green again. You can see this one is quite a bright green now. My one group, my root over rock group back here, it was quite a rusty color, and it's just starting to turn green now too. But it's still too early to repot all those cedars. And I want to do a lot of repotting. I've got a lot of cedars, and I want to do root over rock plantings with a lot of them. So far, the trees I have repotted early, like my trident maple here, is still looking really good. It's nice, healthy looking. The leaves are coming out. My Korean maple here, the buds are really, really big on it now. They're swelling. My hawthorn here, it continues to leaf out. It's looking good so far. My mulberry tree over here, the buds are really getting big on it now. That should be leafing out soon. I've got the royal oaks up here on the bench, and they're looking good still too. I do have some activity on my silver maples here. They're actually starting to leaf out. However, they're planted in a nursery tray, and I did arrange them sort of like a forest. And I don't think they need repotting this year. I think it's just, you know, they're happy in this pot. There's lots of room for them to grow roots. And I'm just going to work on pruning the tops of the trees this year. And eventually, you know, as they get a little more mature and better shaped, they'll go into a bonsai pot. I'll be repotting lots of trees this spring. Some trees will be transitioning from like training pots to maybe a bonsai pot. And that's always exciting, seeing them go up one level in quality and artistic looks. So today, well, let's get this Rose of Sharon repotted. The tree's telling me it's time, so let's get to work. Here's a look at the Rose of Sharon. It's just in a plastic pot, and I'm not sure. I think it was a cutting that someone rooted. So let's get it out of the pot and see what the root system looks like. All right, loosen up the sides, pull the tree out. There we go. Well, lots of roots, that's good. And I'll get out my root rake and start combing away the soil. So here I go. I've never had a Rose of Sharon before, so this will be a new species for me. And I can remember reading somewhere on a forum, which are toxic, that Rose of Sharons aren't bonsai, that you can never make a bonsai of a Rose of Sharon. And yet, I have seen some fantastic Rose of Sharon bonsai. I mean, they can be really, really nice. There's that weed out of there. Yeah, I find those forums, those online forums, I'm not going to mention any, but they're full of people who think they know something about bonsai. And often, you know, there's someone who has maybe one or two bonsai and very little experience, and they just think they know it all, and they can tell people what's a bonsai and what's not a bonsai, and they usually tell everyone that their trees look terrible, and yeah, they're usually very toxic, those forums, so I stay away from them. I mean, there's forums that have mentioned me plenty of times, and I just stay off them because it's just, you can't win on those things. I mean, there's some nasty roots in this tree. I'm wondering if maybe this was started from a seed rather than a cutting, because the root system's quite wild on it. There's some very, very strange roots here. Big, thick ones climbing up out of the soil, and oh my goodness. Well, it's a good thing
Good thing I'm repotting it. I'll get these roots sorted out, and hopefully the tree will make it. Better to do all this work now than later on. Do all this, risky work while the tree is young and you haven't put a lot of work into the tree. And then if it survives, you just keep working on it for the future. And if it doesn't, you try another one. It's easy to give up, but I don't recommend giving up. I think you've got to just learn what you did wrong, or sometimes it's not your fault when a tree dies. It's just sometimes there's insects that attack them. Sometimes they get disease. Sometimes it's weird weather. Sometimes, you just weren't home to water it. There is a stone in here. Not sure why there's a stone in there. Maybe it was from the garden. So is this a cutting is the question. I will know soon enough. So I think you can see this big, thick root here, right here. It starts from somewhere down here. And if it was grown from a seed, it may be the original taproot. I'll try and find out where it starts from. And if it's a cutting, it means, one root found favorable conditions and it just took off and grew. So it comes right off the trunk here. So I think this is grown from a seed. I'm quite sure it is. This is the original taproot of the tree. So I'm going to remove that. It's almost impossible to comb out these roots with that giant taproot curling around the bottom here. So off it comes. That's got part of it. Here it is. It was like a double root there. Okay. There's a lot of root coming off of it. But, there's still lots of roots on the tree. So a little more combing, and then we can come back and do the root pruning. Getting the start of a nice radial root base. Okay, so I'm looking at the roots. This is the highest root, and there's another root almost exactly like it down below. So I'll take off this highest root, helping to establish my radial root plane. There's some roots here that are kind of wrapped around. I just broke off. That I need to prune away. They're just not going a good direction. Where did it go? Went somewhere. And another one here. And here. And here. That one's going a funny direction. Trying to keep my radial roots. There's not many on this side. Here's a root that comes from down low in the root base and wraps around all the other roots, so I'll remove that one. That wraparound root's gone. Here's one that comes up and curls around another root. I've got to get rid of that. Come on. Still attached somewhere. There. Now, there's some roots on the bottom I need to prune off flat. They're kind of curling back around. There's a root here that starts here and then it curls around the tree. So I need to prune that away. These shorten it dramatically. There's another root here that instead of radial, it's like 90 degrees to radial. So I'll prune that one away. Some roots sticking up here. There's another root here that just goes straight down. I'm going to get that one. Get rid of it. There's another one here that grows from the bottom down here and then curls up around the trunk. So I've got to get rid of that. Very strange root. Now you can see here I've got kind of a few planes of roots. If I reduced it to one flat root plane, I think I'd have too few roots for the tree to survive. So I'm going to keep these kind of multi-planes of roots, grow the tree, and then with the next repotting I can further refine the root base. I think that's about all I want to take off for today. I think that's a safe amount. You know, with good aftercare of the tree, keeping it warm and good light, it should survive just fine. I'm going to plant the tree in this terracotta pot. It's a nice deep pot. It's about the right size for it. Should grow well for at least a year or two in here. So I'll get a drainage screen in here, a base layer of soil, and plant the tree. All right, my drainage screen is in the bottom. I'll add some soil. And then I'll position the tree in the pot. Pretty central is where I want it. Now, I'm going to make sure all those roots are in the soil. Like that. And then I'll start filling it in. And I'll just lift the tree up slightly, just to make sure those roots are flowing down into the soil. And then I can tamp it down. Add a bit more just to level it out. Make sure my tree's nice and straight in the pot. That looks good. All right, it's time to water the tree. All right, here I go with the water. I'll rotate the tree around so you can see it from all angles. So here's the front, the right-hand side, the back, the left-hand side, and back to the front. It is nice to have this glass greenhouse because it really spreads the repotting season out. If I had to repot all these at once, I would be overwhelmed. So I can repot all the trees in the glass greenhouse. They leaf out first. Then it'll be the basement and the poly house. And then eventually all the trees that are in the plant room. So really you can spread that repotting season out over many, many months. I've placed some stones on the top of the soil here of the Rose of Sharon. That'll hold the tree in place until the roots get established in the pot. A big step forward for my Rose of Sharon. Another step towards becoming a bonsai. So that is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.